The Passion of Mademoiselle S. Letters to a Lover. Edited and introduced by Jean-Yves Berthault. Read by Jean-Yves Berthault and Imogen Church. Preface. While helping a friend clear out an apartment with a forgotten cellar, I noticed a packing case behind a pile of wood. I moved aside a few broken old picture frames and the odd chair with a missing foot, and found the case was filled with empty preserving jars between two thick layers of newspaper. I felt no one would go to so much trouble to protect a few unused jars with no lids. What if they had been put there to hide some fantastical treasure? I had the unusual feeling that an extraordinary adventure lay right there at my fingertips, that something significant was happening, like when you can feel the hand of fate or you believe you have witnessed a miracle. It was one of those goosebump moments. It could have been a treasure map or an old woolen stocking filled with hundreds of silver coins, share certificates for company long since collapsed, the private diary of a now dead young lady, or an unknown Mozart score. So I plot hastily through the layers of paper and jars guarding the bottom of the box, and came to a heavy leather bag, a beautiful thing, with initials engraved on it in silver. And inside, so many letters, all in the same handwriting, in no particular order. I started to read one, then another, and would eventually explore the entire correspondence of what were clearly love letters, written not merely in daring terms, but with extraordinary erotic audacity. They had been deliberately kept together in this satchel, which, by all appearances, was intended to remain hidden. On one of the letters I spotted a date, 1929, and they were all signed by a woman, Simone. Consumed with curiosity, I bought the letters from my friend. This book is a selection of these letters that Simone wrote to her married lover, Charles. Only a few of them are dated, and it took me almost a year to establish their chronology, making the most of an ambassadorship in a relatively quiet country, which allowed me to devote my weekends and many an evening to the exercise. Given that the correspondence is very extensive, I have selected only a limited number of letters, a little over a third, to include in this volume, and for reasons of discretion, names and places mentioned have been changed. There are many possible readings of this epistolary collection. On the surface, it could be read as one woman's salacious relationship with her lover, expressed in the coarsest of terms, something to be read with the avid curiosity that an anachronistic pornographic novel might arouse. Simone's vocabulary grows more deliberately risqué with the passing month, which is surprising from a cultured young lady, particularly one who, judging by all the evidence, was from a good family. What explanation can there be for such excesses and such modern-sounding language? And what sort of woman would have written like that in those days? I showed these letters to a friend before their publication, and he said, "Come on, admit it. You wrote these. They cannot have been written by a woman in 1928. And I had to show him the original correspondence on its faded writing paper, for him to believe me. Where, then, did Simone learn the obscene vocabulary that she so openly drops into her elegant turns of phrase? I would conjecture that, allowing this vocabulary to intrude into her naturally chaste words, constituted a necessary transgression if she were to overcome the obstacles to her own sexual fulfillment. She most likely adopted words that Charles let slip in the heat of passion, because at the time a man would have allowed himself to say things to his mistress that he would not have said to his wife. And in her quest for liberation, Simone must have appropriated this male vocabulary. We can only imagine that this emancipation, which was so incongruous for
Sample complete. Ready to continue?